It's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming, COVID's coming home. We're all enjoying the Euros, aren't we? Particularly after the dip against Scotland and the resurgence in the first half against the Czech Republic. But are we a bit concerned around some of the COVID hypocrisies that seem to be playing out? Mostly the special permission given to 2,500 UEFA officials to come to subsequent rounds in the UK, avoiding the kind of regulations that are in place, not just for ordinary people, but, you know, that's mostly what the issue is, because we can't sit next to people in a pub, we can't dance at a wedding, but if you happen to be a UEFA official, you can lambarder your way across over from any red zone of your choosing and enjoy a lovely football match. Marina Haidt, writing in The Guardian, explained some of this for us. UEFA threatened last week to take the final away from Wembley. They're literally taking their ball in. We're taking our ball in. You let us come over here and cough our beautiful UEFA germs in your faces, or you ain't having no final. To take the final away from Wembley and move it to Hungary unless 2,500 of their dignitaries can avoid quarantine. Dignitaries as well. We won't have COVID. We're dignitaries. That's a bit undignified. Well, in the governing body's own words, it is working closely with the government and the FA. Not too bloody closely, I hope. I hope it's at least 1.5 metres away and with a mask on, since how you love it so much. The Independent wrote, the government is considering allowing roughly 2,500 football officials, politicians, sponsors and broadcasters to avoid quarantine so they can come over. They're not going to have to quarantine. A mate of mine says his missus come back from somewhere. There's people knocking on the door. Like, well, she's still there. What's going on right now? But you can avoid that. From whatever you look at in this world, you see the sort of tendrils of corruption. You can't even have a lovely European football tournament without finding out that sort of the pandemic is somehow involved in a way that's not purely scientific, but is in fact political. And by political, I mean determined along lines of expedience, privilege, etc. What I suppose is the same with the Indian or Delta variant. If there's an identified problem according to this set of beliefs, then quarantines and structures and flight bans should all be put in place based on utility, because that's what it's being called. We're almost over the line. We're nearly there. I know you couldn't go to this funeral or that funeral, or you've had to cancel your wedding, or you've gone mentally ill now because you're just at home all the time, and maybe you've made a brilliant special like Bo Burnham out of it, but just hold on. Oh, there's a football tournament. Yeah, now fuck it, it'll be alright, they'll be okay. Well, hold on a minute, they're human beings, aren't they? That's 2,500 people. What's the R rate? Isn't it that if they sort of meet 5 people? Don't worry about that. These people are dignitaries. They're not people like you. Alright, well, they're a bit like me, but they're not like you. They're not like you, coughing all over the place. Oh, hands bound up in bandages, reaching out. Can I get a couple of pennies for a vaccine, mate? Get out of my way. I've got a football match to watch. Ministers are concerned that if they do not relax quarantine rules for football officials, then the semi-finals and the finals of the Euros will be moved to Hungary. What a mad threat. Thing is, though, I do want those matches to be held at Wembley myself. Must be hard to be a politician or a UEFA official, because the fact is that you've got to operate in the realms of total corruption. So I suppose what you would end up with is people that are at ease with that level of corruption in those positions. Does that make sense to you? When you look at the people who are in those positions, they're people that have just made peace with the idea of, hold on a minute, if I was going to do that job, I'd have to become some sort of hypocrite and like kind of a by de facto liar, really, and I'd have to be at ease with inequality and corruption and relationships between like the city and government and big business. All those things, instead of being like a jarring anomaly to me that sort of disgusted me to my core, would have to become my bread and butter. Is there anyone here that's okay with it? I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Right, well, you guys run things. We'll just sit here quietly in quarantine while you guys cough up a festival for each other. Marina Haidt asks, is hosting the final worth further compromising the idea that we're all somehow in this together? Or is the waiving of COVID rules for a bunch of largely parasitic liggers regarded as a price worth paying by Boris Johnson's government? Well, you know, obviously the answer to that rhetorical question is that it is. And even though I'm not going to be going to any of those football matches, even I sort of think, oh, I don't want that being held in Hungary. But I've been conditioned, Wembley, oh, we're the famous Amazon, we're going to Wembley. Like, it's all in my mind, I can't help it once them lads step out in those shirts. I suppose you have to be sympathetic towards the attractions of patriotism, nationalism and the convenience of an economically advantageous tournament being held in your country, because These are what these systems do. The problem lies in the hypocrisy, doesn't it? The problem lies in the fact that you're being asked to make sacrifices purely on the basis of utility that really aren't being fulfilled elsewhere in other sections of society. But if you think about it, economic elites have more in common with each other than they do with ordinary people, and ordinary people have more in common with each other than they do economic elites. I suppose an example like allowing people to fly in from other countries even though it's at odds with the prevailing ideology and mentality just reveals that they don't take it seriously. They don't take it seriously. Not for them. It's okay for them. It's not okay for you. Don't question it. According to Boris Johnson, she continues, the government wish to make sensible accommodations for UEFA. We've got to make sensible. So sensible, again, words like sensible, natural, viable, these are kind of plastic terms, and when you analyse them, you can see how power operates. Well, I think any normal person would think it was okay. I think a sensible decision will be allow the dignitaries to come in. With COVID set to cause disruptions deep into winter, oh, that's a drag, isn't it, man? I thought we were over it. I thought it was June the 21st. I thought it was July the 19th. I thought it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. When does this thing end, for God's sake? What a peculiar and unusual time we're living through. In fact, I've got to be honest with you, my enjoyment of the Euros has been impacted by the fact, not just the obvious things like, you know, the crowds and that kind of stuff, but by a feeling, you know, like when Christian Eriksen was sick on the field in Denmark, Finland, and it brought into clarity the idea that, oh God, it's odd that we're doing this. You know, for me, that oddness was already present because of what's been going on. Whenever there are festivals, don't you feel like, oh God, it's weird that we're doing this when there's all of the other problems in the world that we've been talking about? Are they suspended? I mean, that is the point of a carnival, of a festival, and you know, the Euros is a football festival, is for a moment, we suspend normality and we immerse ourselves in this different set of rules. But when reality has become so intrusive, when you can't live normal life anymore because so many things are being mandated, when there is so much cynicism, suspicion, and doubt around so many things that are becoming fundamental, I find it hard to put my head into like the deep sea diver's helmet of the Euros and just go, cool man, I'm just going to enjoy that Raheem Sterling's doing well on the international stage, and Saka, oh man, look at his pace, and oh, I think Grealish is going to work out. I love all that stuff, but I can't enjoy it in the same way, not just because of the hypocrisy is evident in this story, the dignitaries being allowed to travel freely when so much restriction is placed upon ordinary people and indeed some players from the tournament, weirdly. It's more that the festival itself is now not an interruption in what you would call normality or normalcy, but a disruption of something extraordinary. And it's sort of, I'm finding it a little bit hard to process. I'm not saying, oh, that's a problem, Russell's having a trouble. You know, I'm just saying, isn't it weird to thrust yourself into care for the Euros and Harry Kane's form and all that kind of stuff when the world is so mental? So what are we learning right now? We're learning that the world is changing so rapidly and there's so much doubt, cynicism, and hypocrisy around the way the world is changing that even the salve of a football festival is insufficient to send us back into the numbness. If you like this video, please press like, subscribe to it, comment, tell me what you think, see what kind of videos you want to watch. Remember, my podcast from Luminary is available now on Apple, where I talk at length to brilliant, informative experts, and where I also conduct a weekly Above the Noise guided meditation. And if that weren't enough for $2.99 a month or whatever it is, it's around that, Dave Chappelle's on there, for God's sake, doing his podcast. So check that out, and please join up to my mailing list as well.